Dr. First, this is her diagram. And what I find so beneficial of it is just you've got a visual exactly how the brain works. And so before learning, you just know, what it is. Like there's just some memory traces. So those little light dots right there can be the memory traces that get encoded the first time that you're introduced to something, right? And so she actually explains how we go from simply knowing we have seen something before to properly mastering that knowledge. And so in the first stage, all we can do is just differentiate something old from something new. So for instance, maybe students could tell from a list of names which ones they've already studied, right? If it's a list of like people from history, they can look at that list and be like, oh yeah, I studied Thomas Jefferson. I can't remember what he does or anything. Well, I recognize that name of George Washington, right? You see what I'm saying here? And so they can do that amount of understanding, right? They only are familiar with the names. So that doesn't actually mean they remember any of the information about those historical characters. So they just simply recognize the name. The next stage is to actually understand a piece of information, that is to give meaning to it. So in order to do that, they need to link new knowledge to something that they've already mastered. You can recognize, for example, a word in another language, right? But you only understand it when you can relate its meaning to the word in your native language. Same kind of thing for everything that we have to learn. It's always going to be built upon something that we already know. And there's actually a neuro myth out there, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard it, but if you've heard that you can, destroy neural pathways and replace them, that's not actually how the mind works. Instead, you build on top of, and you can change existing neural pathways and what already exists. You don't eradicate them, okay? You build on top to form new knowledge and deeper understanding, which actually makes even more sense, right? Deeper understanding, you've got deeper layers of those neuronal networks. All right, so then the next step is to understanding, right? And so that's, of course, which we already talked about, right? So even when you understand the meaning of something, it still doesn't understand that you're going to remember it for a long time. And so to go from understanding to mastering, we need to use that knowledge over and over again, right? So for instance, let's just go back to that same example of learning a new language. If you ask somebody fluent, like if you ask someone fluent in a second language how they managed to learn it, what are they going to say? They probably tell you that they lived in that country. They knew someone that they talked to. Maybe they like chatted online with somebody. They had a pen pal, whatever that is, right? They talked to somebody over and over again. And if they were practicing by listening to the same audio, the results would not be the same as if they actually practiced putting themselves in different situations, right? Different people that you talk to, going to a restaurant is different from, making small talk in a line waiting in the bank, right? Just those are different types of situations. You got to practice all of them in order to really master a language. So this is helpful to know as instructional designers, because we want to know how you can physically change the brain, how it works, because we know now, and you'll see more about the theories and those kinds of things, but we know now that understanding, right, and mastery is built upon something that they've already become familiar with, then something that they connected to something that they already know, and then mastery after understanding comes through practice, right? And so just knowing that alone will help improve the type of courses that you build ultimately. All right. So of course I took Dr. Faust's model and I made it in my brand colors and a little easier to see. And so here's a simplified model of the evolving neural representation concept. And so just again, I wanted to point it out. You rehearse to know, you connect to prior knowledge to understand, and through effective practice, you can master. And this is the same for you as you are going to learn instructional design. And I also want to point out that just because you master, no expert's knowledge is ever perfect. There's always something new to learn, which means it's cyclical, right? Then you go back to learning some new words, just like somebody just saw learning experience designer for the first time. Now they know that word. Now they've got to connect it to understand. So you'll be able to connect learner experience designer to what you already understand about an instructional designer. And then you'll get to build on top of that. And then if you really wanted to know and master learning experience design, well, then you go and practice and do